Welcome to J Hart Model Works and the first update on the Ford GT by Tamiya. I'm Justin. Welcome to my workbench. Alright, here we are, and as you can see, we do not have primer on it yet. We have, however, cleaned up the mold lines. There was a mold line on each side of the front fenders. There seemed to be a little bit of something on each side of the front clip and on the back. But we've got those cleaned up, and we've got the whole body is keyed with some 600 grit Tamiya sanding sponge, so that's ready for primer. You'll also notice that all the panel lines have some Tamiya black panel line wash or accent color in there. I do this for a couple of reasons. One is when I paint, if the primer or the paint or something doesn't really get in and cover inside the panel lines, I'm not going to have, white panel lines underneath there that didn't get paint in them. They will be shaded, so they're already pre-shaded. But the other thing is that when I rescribe panel lines, I have a tendency to jump out of the line and kind of scratch up the paint. Or scratch up the body, not the paint. But by putting some panel line in here, I can see when I jump out of the lines, and I can sand that back, putty it if I need to, clean it up, and then refill it and make sure that it doesn't flow into that again. Once I don't have any panel line accent color running off, then I know that I've gotten it filled, and I'm not going to have an issue. I did mention on the unboxing video that I thought that these were going to be black. They are not. These are body colored. The two parts that sit underneath here, there's a part that goes under here and a part that goes under this side. Those two parts are going to be black. I may do them in carbon fiber because those are carbon fiber parts. Also, on the unboxing, I pointed out that right back here in this corner here and this corner over here, I had a couple of sink marks. Chris from CD Scale Models suggested that I fill them with super glue and then sand that back, and that I tried it and it did a wonderful job. You cannot tell at all that there were sink marks there at all. Some other things that I wanted to point out: the way these vent inserts get glued in, there's a seam. So it's right here and right here, and they actually show up right along here and right along here. And what I did with these was I took some Tamiya lacquer based white putty and I mixed it, I thinned it with some Mr. Leveling Thinner until it was about the consistency of like unthinned Tamiya acrylic paint, so it was a little thicker than milk. And then I brushed it in, and then I used my UMP thinny sponge to get in there and sand in, and I could get right in where I needed to be. And because this is a sponge material, it just conforms to that curve the way I need it to, so it doesn't really reshape anything. It just conforms to and then smooths out those creases. I have kind of hit them with some primer a couple of times. It let me see that there was still a seam in there, so I sanded it back out, refilled it, sanded it back in again, sprayed it again. And when I got a spray in that didn't have the seam lines, so I knew it was clean, I just sanded all that white back out and just got that clean back off, so that I won't have like uneven primer or anything like that. So you've got to make sure those seam lines get filled, or you're going to have seams in there that aren't on the car. Another thing is on both sides of this front clip up here, the sprue points are right here and right here. And the way they sit and the way the part is molded, when you cut those and you try to, sand them back to clean up the spot, if you aren't careful, you can really mess up the profile of this curve and it won't fit better. I actually got pretty close to messing it up. If I had gotten any worse than I did, I would have refilled this. I would have filled this with putty and sanded it and gotten it all smooth, and then gone in and manually rescribed a panel line back in there. Thankfully I didn't have to do that, but just watch that when you do sand those parts. If you look on the real car, this is a straight line, but the way Tamiya the parts glue, they don't follow that panel line. Instead, it kind of goes up and then zigzags. You can kind of see it on this side here. I have filled that and it's as smooth as I can get it, but you are going to want to fill that, otherwise you're going to have a seam in there that's not going to look real good. Again, I've shot a little bit of just real tiny bit of primer in there and let it dry, and then just made sure that it wasn't going to have a seam once primer's on it, and then I went back in with some UMP airbrush cleaner on a Q-tip and cleaned that back out. If you get it before it cures, you can just clean it right back out. So I'm pretty sure I'm not going to have any problems there, but that's something you're going to want to watch and you're going to want to clean up before you put this spoiler in place. I did go ahead and put the side fenders on for the back fenders, and looking at this, I'm kind of thinking this may be a little difficult to spray in there and get good even spray. It's definitely going to require some very careful tilting and airbrush acrobatics, but hopefully that isn't a problem. We'll see when we get primer on it. I've also gone ahead and cleaned up, sanded off all the attachment points, and keyed the mirror, top halves of the mirror. I'm trying to decide how I'm going to attach these so that I can spray them. In theory, this part doesn't need to be sprayed, so I could just, super glue a toothpick on there and then just, cut it off and sand it back. What I may do, however, is just put some blue tack down in here and stab the blue tack with some toothpick. Toothpicks and blue tack are incredibly helpful. Just kind of get like that in there and kind of hold it like that while I can spray it. I'm just a little concerned that I may get too much blue tack in there or something and just not be able to, I don't want to remove the blue tack and have a white seam around where I didn't get paint. So maybe just kind of a smaller amount of blue tack in there. Just I'll have to be careful with the air pressure. But there we go. So let's go ahead and we're gonna get some primer on this and come right back. Alright, we're back from the garage. As you can see, we've got some primer down. Primer did lay down pretty smooth, didn't have too much issue with it. As you can see, inside these vent hoods are nice and smooth where we did that putty work. Also back here, it's a little harder to see, but we don't have any sinks back here where those sink marks were. Those came out nice and smooth. We did have a slight issue on this fender, but that was an issue that I caused. I did not realize that the primer had gone on a little thick here, and so as I was blowing over the body with some air, it caused the wet primer to puddle up. I did sand this back a couple of times, respray it a couple of times, sand it back some more, about 2 or 3 times, and this is pretty smooth. It's about as smooth as I'm going to get it. And I can't really see too much issue. I don't think that's going to be a problem. All in all, primer came out pretty well. One thing in these buttresses were kind of a pain to get primer into. I had to sit and spray down this way, and then I had to sit and spray through here. You just can't get a flat angle. You have to keep turning this in various angles to get paint in all the cracks and crevices in here. At the same time, when I was assembling the body and I did assemble these on here, I did have to do some putty work in here. So I think it would be a trade-off either way. If I had left these side panels off, yes, they would be easier to spray. But I think that there would have been some issues when I came to glue them back in place. There may be some gaps between here where it doesn't sit perfectly, and you can't putty it after you've painted. Or you may have, because you're going to have to super glue painted parts, you may end up with some super glue oozing out or causing problems, and that either way it's going to be a trade-off one way or the other. I did primer the inside of the body. I do primer all of my bodies on the inside, and I usually will spray some black on the inside as well. But all in all, it came out really nice. And so we're just going to let this sit for a day or two to cure before we move on to paint and clear. Speaking of paint and clear, that will be covered probably in the next episode, so stay tuned. If you do like what I'm doing here, hit the like button, leave me some comments below in the comments section. I do try to respond to all the comments that I can. Also, if you're not a subscriber to the channel, please go ahead and consider hitting that subscribe button and clicking the bell so you can be notified when I release new content. Thank you all for watching, and have a great day.